since the last time we were here, we were working on the Hyperion stuff.
Thanks for coming here. Appreciate it.
Thanks. So you were telling me that you used to live in Germany.
Yeah.
So how's it been since you've come back out here, and how do you like California, living out here?
It's been hot.
Yeah, I know.
We were currently running around 105, something like that. So it's something I'm not that used to, but I'm enjoying it pretty much. Because, I mean, Germany gets nice summers as well, but yeah, California weather, there's nothing to talk about. It's just great. So we're enjoying that. Yeah, kind of rewarding being here. It's so convenient to meet people, to just head into town every now and then and set up meetings, get to know new people, be it film people, directors, music supervisors, or other composers that I can meet with and have a chat with. And yeah, it's just, it's really great being here.
Yeah, it's kind of like this is the area to be if you're working in, either Hollywood or film, or kind of everyone's out here.
Yeah, I wouldn't really say that is a necessity to be here to do the job that we're doing, but it definitely helps a lot.
Exactly. Yeah, and since the last time I was here, you've definitely done some upgrades to the studio, as you can see. A
little bit of DIY.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of DIY, but it's good DIY. So have you always done this sort of thing before, or?
Actually, not to the extent that I did it here. So back in Germany, I had my studio in the basement, and being used to working with headphones a lot, and didn't give so much thought into improving the sound of the room and things like that. When I now look back to old YouTube videos that I've been doing for the streams, I can hear that definitely in the audio, in the mic, how the reflections from the room reflect the sound of the room there. So it wasn't the best decision. And when I got here, as you remember the last time you were here, there was no room treatment at all. And actually I wanted to record a little bit of acoustic guitar for a library track that I was working on, and plugged in the mic and got in front of the mic and played a little bit, and just the recording plain sucked. So it was just not usable because there were so many flutter echoes in this room, and the room is pretty much a square.
Yeah.
So it's really tough to get a decent sound in here. Not talking about using speakers or doing any recordings in here. So I was thinking, well, you definitely need some room improvement, and I kind of watched some tutorials on YouTube on how to build your own stuff and build your own panels. I had a little bit of information about how it works and what you need to do, and that you kind of set it up straight across where the speakers sit, and that you get the speakers a little bit off the wall to avoid reflection and all that stuff. But it was helpful to watch a bunch of different YouTube tutorials on some guys who did it themselves, and also explained a lot of stuff, how it's done. Not the building itself, but just what you need to do for a room like this. Like with the corner traps and
first reflections and all that sort of thing.
Exactly. And I wouldn't say that this room now is measured correctly. That's not the case, but it works decently enough for me to now record audio in here and have a decent listening environment when I'm working with speakers.
Yeah, because even just being in here now and talking, it's like there's nothing.
It's pretty dry now, yeah.
Yeah, but what's cool too is not totally killing it, because sometimes it's good to sort of have a little bit of that.
I don't want to have it plain dead, so it's still there. You still get the oral information that you're in a room, so that you hear reflections and that, but it's really damped down thanks to the panels.
And how did you go about building the bass traps? Was it kind of the same process as far as the normal panels?
I was thinking a while about how to actually do it. So it's it's pretty much a triangle on both ends, and then just 8-foot wooden. Well, what are they called? So it's just the frame, pretty much.
Oh, okay.
So it's not solid. And then I just cut rock wool into 2 triangles next to each other and stapled it up all the way up. and then just put fabric around. So
Nice.
it's not very stable, but it's just sitting in the corner and doesn't
Yeah,
need
it's
to
not
do
going
anything.
anywhere.
So it doesn't need to be rock solid,
Yeah.
So it just wooden triangle on both ends, and then the long woods in between to give it shape, and then or to hold the rock wool, and that's it. So
Nice.
then it's just a matter of tightening up the fabric a little bit so that you get a decent front.
A little bit more aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I think like it's just a super cost-effective way if you're gonna, if you are gonna
If
do
you
it
do
yourself.
it yourself, these panels are like, if broken down to what you need, it's like $15 per piece, pretty much.
That's crazy.
Plus the fun that you have.
Yeah,
I enjoy doing a little bit of DIY, and and it's really not hard to do, to be honest. So I kind of post a little bit about the progress on my Instagram, and what I did, to how the panels are built. It's pretty much just these plain wood that you screw together.
Oh, so you actually screw all the panels
Yeah,
together?
I just screwed them together, and that's it. So there's not much to it. Then rock wool in, fabric on top, stapling it, done.
How is it dealing with rock wool? Because is it pretty like
I was a
friendly
little
to
bit
the skin?
afraid
or-
that it's itchy and all that stuff, but overall I got some gloves at Lowe's to work with it, and no problem at all. I haven't had a single time where it was itching or scratching or whatever. It was totally convenient.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely not only is it aesthetically pleasing, it's actually sonically like it works. It
That's
has
the
a
main
purpose.
I mean, it's kind of both. I mean, you don't want
Yeah.
to sit in something where you don't like looking at the walls.
Yeah.
But the most important thing was to get it sonically treated and
Yeah.
to have a decent working environment. We're in a rented flat here, so I wanted to kind of come up with solutions and do as little damage as possible to the walls. So
Yeah, I think for the most part, the only thing you really have is the monitor on the wall, and then the tension rods up top holding the panels above.
Yes.
You can't see this in this, but there's actually panels above us, which is really cool. And
we might do a picture that we can put into the YouTube
yeah,
video
yeah,
there.
I'll get some shots panning around. So as far as your work setup, could you talk a little bit about that? As far as what you use, like what's your predominant workhorse setup?
I've been pretty much since 20 years now. I've been using Cubase, so I've always been a Cubase guy from the very beginning. But obviously, you look outside the window every now and then. So I have Ableton on my system for sometimes I like the way Ableton handles audio treatment when you do custom sound design stuff and things like that. It's just very convenient to work in there. I tried Studio One PreSonus, and I have it sitting on my system, but I'm not using it much anymore nowadays because there's kind of a little race between Studio One and Cubase. They're always,
totally. Before I got Cubase, I actually was looking at Studio One because it had certain features that I wanted, and then I just ended up kind of just making the move toward Cubase.
So Studio One has some nice features, especially in terms of drag and drop functionality and all that stuff. So it's pretty convenient. But for the way I work, and since I do a lot of work in MIDI, for me, Cubase is still the superior DAW when it comes to MIDI editing and working in MIDI.
Yeah, it feels like it's kind of designed
Yeah.
for people who are doing a lot of composing.
Exactly, that's what I feel as well. And so yeah, Cubase is my main DAW. I don't want to start on working, counting down what sample libraries I use. There's a ton.
Yeah.
Right now I have a master slave setup. So pretty much for the fact that I got my mobile rig, which is a pretty decent laptop, which is same likewise spec'd as my main DAW.
Oh, nice.
And I got that as a solution first to back up my system in case something breaks or something isn't working anymore. So I have a backup solution that I can keep on working.
Nice.
And second thing was to have a mobile solution when I'm on the way, meeting with a client or whatever, to take my laptop with me and be able to fire up a session there. But since these occasions are not every day or something like that I'm on the way, so most of the time I'm here in the studio, and before I have it sitting on the shelf and collecting dust, I just decided to get it into my workflow as a template because it's a huge workhorse there that is not utilized. And now I spread the workflow, the workload from both from my main system onto both systems, so that I incorporated the slave via VE Pro. And so now I'm running VE Pro on my main DAW and on my slave, and everything in terms of virtual instruments is hosted outside of Cubase, which makes it easier for me or easier for Cubase to handle like 1,000 track template or something like that, when it just needs to care about a little bit of EQing on the return channels and MIDI editing. That's all Cubase takes care of right now.
Yeah, it's nice to have it that way because kind of like with the mixing plugins like, Universal Audio, how they have stuff where you can sort of rent it off that DSP and just, anything you can do to sort of make where you're actually making music, not have to run so hard. It seems like it's definitely a nice, function to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. And you were telling me a little bit about some of the, there's a iPad behind me that's got a bunch of articulations and stuff, and you were sort of showing me a little bit of how you have, some of these different controllers for...
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm using Touch OC on an iPad, and this 2 iPad setup came to happen because my wife got a new laptop and doesn't use the iPad anymore. So I just incorporated. No, what I'm doing is my right hand, if you don't know whether you can see that here, so there's an iPad here. Oops. No, I don't want to talk to you. So this is pretty much my Cubase control. So whatever I'm doing in Cubase, I can do visibility setups. In my big template, I have like 1,000 tracks, and it's pretty convenient to just show the high strings or the low strings, whatever I'm working on right now. Then for MIDI editing, I have different setups when I'm inside the MIDI editor, like change the grid from 1/16 to 1/8 and all that stuff. I can change the controller lanes, like show me expression, show me mod wheel, show me the articulation setups for the expression maps and all that stuff. Nice. This is all controlled from this part of the iPad. And the other pad is on my left hand side, so to say, is pretty much my key switch instruments that use key switches. I don't use key switches, I use the Cubase expression maps, which is a pretty convenient way to work with different articulations. And so I can click the articulation on the iPad and it changes instantly to spiccato or pizzicato, whatever.
Nice. So Eden Tomorrow, you were posting about that you finished it up. Was it a few weeks ago?
Yeah. Actually, yeah, last week I finished my part of the work in terms of composing everything and assembling everything, because I don't mix it here. It gets we did some live recordings back in Germany in Hanover for the strings for the game score, and they are also taking care of the mix for the whole game score. And so this is currently being done. We just got some rough mixes to listen to, and I'm really impressed with what they're doing. So I'm really looking forward to the final result there. And
it's a VR game, right?
It's a Sony VR game. I think it will be out something like August. I will definitely post an announcement
that's
on my
not too
page
far away.
once I have confirmation for that. And it was really fun. It was actually my first game score that I've been working on.
Oh, nice.
So the game dev approached me last year. He actually saw some of my YouTube videos, tutorials and walkthroughs and things like that. And he got to me and said, yeah, we're doing this game for Sony and VR game. And I pretty much from the beginning, I told him that I haven't done any games before, and I am not very good at adaptive audio and adaptive music and things like that, or music implementation. And he kind of really calmed me down there, because with this VR game, it's more of a cinematic approach than a game approach. So it's more linear than adaptive. Which was convenient for me too. It was more like working to picture and working to the walkthrough that he sent me, and capturing the emotions for the necessary emotions for the scenes that we've been working on. And yeah, I think it turned out great, and I will definitely do some more background information on the score in the near future. I plan doing an interview with the game developer on how the music came to be, and so we will definitely fill the social media channels with a little bit more info on this.
Nice. So you didn't do as much actual like how they break it up into layers. It was more of just like
It was pretty much comparable to doing a film score.
Oh, nice. So did you actually get to go to the sessions where you recorded the live strings?
I was there for that was one of the last things we did before we actually moved to LA. One of the last steps to do was to do the recordings in Hanover. And yeah, it was great. We didn't have the budget for full orchestra or big section, so we kind of tricked a little bit, and we got really good string quartet on board. And for the cues that we wanted to have with live strings and live orchestra or live sounds, we kind of did 2 takes we had 3 tires. We had string chords, string melody, and string rhythms. So, and we rewrote that for quartet pretty much, and everything was recorded open and concertino, so muted. And then when we laid that together, and overall the overall sound sounds like a huge string section.
Oh, nice.
So
that's cool.
It's was really great working like that. So
yeah, and that's kind of a real cost-effective way of not having to have, some 40-piece string section or something.
Exactly. We didn't have a 40-piece string section, but they did a tremendous job. I mean, it obviously comes a lot down to the musicians that you utilize for the recordings, but they did an amazing job in really nailing every cue.
Nice.
It was like a whole day session at the studio, and we got everything done. There's like 10 cues for the game that we have live strings in now. Yeah, it sounds great. So can't wait to share once it's finally done.
Nice. And where did you guys record again?
We recorded the strings at Tesmer Studios in Hanover, in Germany. So it's a private-owned studio. It's a huge recording room. I have some pictures from the recordings on my Instagram. It was a great experience. So it was really fun.
That's cool. Yeah, it's always nice being able to, I think, get some real instruments inside of, especially
it's so
working.
Much of a difference having at least just one live player or something on top that you do live. That is so, yeah, kind of, it breathes life into a score. You can go a pretty long way with virtual instruments and samples, but this human element on top is what really makes the icing on the cake.
Yeah, and the project that you were showing me, or you gave me a CD a while back, of the one that you had live singers on.
Elements.
Yeah, Elements. Yeah, how was it working with them as far as
since back then I was still in Germany when we did these recordings. It was kind of a network approach, oftentimes communicating through Facebook or email, and most of these singers that I've been working with there, like Younger Bold and Soundiron, they do remote recording sessions, so pretty much you just send them either a MIDI file or a rendered mock-up of what you want to have, and kind of try to detail out what you have in mind, what you envision for the vocals. Sometimes you ask them to improvise and just try their take on the backing track that you provide them with. And sometimes you have a fixed melody and say, oh, I really need it like that, or put all your emotion into it that you that you can. And so yeah, it's just a question of communicating and trusting them to know what they do. And it worked out really, really well. Over the process, I work with different singers. I only had one kind of disappointment where it just didn't work out, but this just happens like in every other job life as well. Sometimes you just meet people that you can't get along with or whatever.
Yeah.
So failure is part of the process.
Yeah.
And so yeah, but overall it turned out really great, and I'm really happy with what these instrumentalists and vocalists did.
Yeah, they did a really good job on it. It like really takes the music to like a whole nother like emotional level, I think. So one of the things I was really impressed with when the last time I came down was your ability to just kind of compose so quickly. I think that's really impressive, and it's really a cool thing to watch. Especially just kind of getting to be a fly on the wall and watching you do your thing. And as far as your musical background, I don't know if you want to talk briefly just about that, or sort of like your musical approach, because I'd really like to sort of get a little insight in as far as to like your thought process when you first start to work on a cue, or
Well, I try to make that as brief as possible. So music has been part of my life pretty much all the time, but not through education per se. So I rather had an autodidactic approach. With all the stuff that is happening, school band back there, and then later on I did some top 40 bands and playing gigs, and I was a keyboardist.
Yeah, I saw you were doing the band thing for a little bit.
Yeah, and then actually as the more serious side of music came pretty late for me. So it was like in 2008 when I did a band project with a guitarist friend of mine who actually was my employer back then as well. And so that was Ansotica, which we aimed for this Nightwish Within Temptation sound, female fronted symphonic metal.
Yeah.
I kind of just liked the music back then, still like it today, and wanted to do something like that on my own. And it was pretty successful, the whole debut album we did, and that was my first getting in contact with orchestral samples and orchestral arrangements. I've never done anything. I played keyboards till then, but never did anything orchestral. And back then we had East West, I think, the basic orchestral package. That's what we used for the album, and I just had no other way than jumping into it and doing it. That was all there is to it. And shortly after, like with oftentimes these projects happen, it kind of fell apart and didn't develop further. But I was still sitting there thinking, okay, I really liked what I was doing there. And then I started, I was working in web design back then, and also I decided to get audio some kind of way into my freelancing. And I started out selling tracks on Audio Jungle, or uploading tracks for first, and I still remember like what it was to sell my first track there. It was, I mean, it's hilarious from today's point of view. Back then, I think tracks were sold for $11 a piece, but I still remember thinking about the fact what it made with me, knowing that someone out there in the world was willing to pay $11 for a track of yours to use in whatever project. That was how it started out. And back then also Facebook got more famous in Germany, so I think it was 2007, 2008, somewhere around that time, that it got popular over in Germany. And I kind of decided for myself to have this as, to not use it to procrastinate, but to use it as a networking tool.
Yeah,
so to
totally.
get in contact. So I really dedicated like 1 or 2 hours of my daily time that I've been working and doing music and all that stuff to really concentrate on networking and getting to know people, just meeting new people, meeting friends.
Yeah, just kind of
not
introducing
necessarily
yourself
meeting
around.
employers or asking for work or whatever, but just hang around with people, with like-minded people, and talk about things. And if you use it like that, it happens organically to evolve into something more, that you get to know people, that you talk about work-related things, and suddenly someone can recommend you to a library that has been where it happened for me. So back then I met Russell Bell from London, and he recommended me to my first library in the US that I've been working with, and I have placement with them ever since, like America's Next Top Model and all that stuff. And this only happens when you get to know people. And we are in the lucky situation today that you not necessarily need to be on the spot, so you can meet so many people online and get in touch. But still, it's just the way. In Germany we say, wie es in den Wald hineinruft, kommt's wieder raus, which pretty much translates to, as you shout into the forest, it comes out of it. So if you are genuinely interested in the other person and not kind of demanding or want something, but just get in touch, hang out, be a good hang, then everything comes naturally. It's just a question of time and constantly building on relationships.
Yeah, it's like, it's like when you just kind of meet people going out, you're not thinking like, oh, I'm going to be this friend because, oh, I heard he's got a lot of money, so maybe he'll let me borrow money. You're just like, when you're just naturally friends with people outside of the business, it's like if people approached it like that, like you're just meeting people and just having fun. Or, like you said, like if you just go to Guitar Center and bump into someone who happens to play guitar just as good as you just like, hey, show me that lick that you were doing or something. You just kind of have fun with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And some people can use it in a way that's a little distasteful, I think. But I think, like you're saying, the way you did it, just being cool with people and, like as musicians, it's always fun for us to just kind of just talk to people. And just,
that's the hardest part of the whole
It's
job.
funny. It's funny because like we sit in a room by ourselves, just kind of doing it, and then no matter what, when you get around other people who do it too, just somehow it just becomes a topic of conversation because you would think the last thing you'd want to talk about is setting up key switches and what DAW to use, but a lot of times
yesterday I met with Mark Petrie. So my wife, when she's with us, she's not a musician, and it can get pretty nerdy pretty soon when you are really deep into talking about key switches and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, it's fun on the other side. So
yeah, I think for most girlfriends, the last thing they want to hear about is nerdy stuff like that. But around other musicians, they'll probably just tune out while you're just having fun talking with somebody about it. Now that you've sort of done the game thing and doing stuff for film, how do you like the two of each one? Like, is there one that you prefer, or being that I know that the one that you just worked on was more of a film type?
Yeah, that's why it's hard to answer like that, because I can't really compare the game that I've been working on with what a usual game composer is doing, because it's a totally different workflow. I still haven't been into adaptive music. I want to actually dive into that and look deeper into that, and want to just expand my knowledge in this field. But for now, the game that I've been doing, the VR game, is more of a film score than anything else related to game music, what you consider as game music or adaptive music. And so right now for me it's a lot of production music that I'm doing, and then the game or / film side of things. For me, film and also this game is more like the cream of the crop. It's like the how to say that, not the cream of the crop pretty much sums it up. I really enjoy working in the field of production music and trailer music, and this gives me a lot of freedom because I don't need to not necessarily need to meet deadlines or need to please clients in that like it's been done with film, for example, where you need to please the music soup and the director and the producer, and hopefully that works out as well. But working in production music is way more easy and relaxed, and you don't have these kind of tight deadlines. But I really enjoy both fields. So kind of for me right now is like production music allows me to look into film projects, game projects, whatever I can do besides the production music schedule. So I love both. As long as I can be here doing music.
Yeah, it's kind of
it's kind
everything has its own challenges, and it's just kind of like that's part of the job is always figuring out each challenge as it comes around. Well, as far as creativity wise, is working on that project, do you feel like not having those deadlines sort of helped you with like did it like make you a little bit more creative, not having that stress? Or
you mean for the production music side of things? Yeah, definitely. I mean, partly creativity is a little bit reduced because you work in certain expected soundscapes. So when you're working on a tension cue, usually it's not you don't write the next John Williams piece, so it's very there. I won't say set rules, but there are certain things that you do to achieve a certain mood. So when you say, okay, I want some kind of scary horror-ish tune, Then you go with some cluster sounds and things like that. When you want an action-paced sequence, you pretty much always use the spiccato strings to give it the pace, and use the big percussion booms on the beats and things like that. So it's most of the time it's pretty generic. So in the field of production music, and when you think of it, where is production music used? It's under dialogue in reality TV and all that stuff. So it gives the scene a certain pace, but it's not to stand out really that much, because you have most of the time you have people talking on top of that.
Yeah.
But I still enjoy it really much to meander in these different genres. So like working on a tension track, high intensity, and in the next moment I go to a weeping, sad, melancholic human drama track because I just feel like it for a moment, or have an idea. And that's the cool thing about the way I've set up my template. I wanted something a working environment that allows me to do whatever kind of style I feel inclined to do at that particular moment, and not change anything or load anything else up or whatever, but just change the MIDI channel that I'm working on and use a soft piano, or use a felt piano, or use a pad sound from whatever synth I want to use. It's all pre-set up pretty much, and I can do a heavy metal track followed by a jazz Slatin tune followed by an orchestral track. So, and it's all set up in the same template. So, and that's a pretty convenient way for me of working and switching between ideas. And for me, this drives the creativity again. Being able to just switch genres and things like that. Which is cool for the production music side of things. One thing that we did for the game was we wanted to have a kind of ethereal sound, space-like, very open. And I tried a bunch of pads and Omnisphere and wasn't too happy with the results, because everything was... I didn't want to program something on my own. So I took a wine glass, actually, and did these, with a drop of water, these sweeping tones, and sampled that and made a pad out of it, which sounds absolutely great in the context of the game score. And it's just cool. These simple things that sets it apart from using stock sounds or whatever. It's just a little bit more creative.
Yeah. Do you do that often, where you sort of sample your ukulele?
Yeah. It really is dependent on the project. When the project demands some more creativity, some coming up with your own sound, I think this is what it's about, to make it stand out a little bit. So maybe somebody hears and says, damn, how is that done? Or oftentimes in production music it doesn't happen like that. Production music is more about getting the job done fast. I mean, these are tools that are made for that specific purpose. Obviously I try to change them up a little bit still and make them a little bit more unique, so that you don't end up sounding like your next composer at the next corner who's using the same presets. I totally have nothing against presets, because I still think that even using a preset is a creative decision, because there's a reason why I use a specific sound. I can understand the people who say, well, presets are something from hell, design your own sounds and all that stuff.
Yeah, like you're being lazy about it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm totally not with that. When I find a sound in a synth or whatever, and it fits the purpose that I have for the cue that I have in my mind, why there a need to alter it if it works? If it works, it works. And then I can go on and finish the cue and do the next one. Yeah, obviously you can lose hours and hours in tweaking a little sound.
Oh yeah, like and then end up going back to just using the preset again. Yeah. You're just
I did that on Elements way more than I did on I mean, I had a lot of freedom for Elements from my publisher, so I kind of approached and said, I want to do an album, but I don't want any direction, I want to do whatever I want.
Yeah, so, well, that's always fun.
And this is where I put way more time into these tiny little details that some people may not even notice that they're there. And so, but on the other hand, if you take them away, it kind of leaves a gap there. So it's a balance. Sometimes you need to do these fiddly projects where you can really dive deep into either sound design or patch tweaking or how you orchestrate and arrange things. And sometimes you just want this cue done in half an hour and send it off to your publisher because your TV station is asking for a tension cue or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like the diversity of both on both ends.
Being that you kind of like me, I kind of came from more of the metal background too. Do you ever just get bored and just say, I want to write some, write a little metal track or something, or?
I think the cool thing about working in the production music field is that you not easily get bored, because once you are bored with a certain style that you're working on, you can just change and do something completely different. And so I haven't had that yet, that I felt bored with. Well, I mean, sometimes I know that I've been doing a 12-track tension album, for example, for a publisher, and on track number 9 you slowly start to realize, okay, it's pretty much always the same. I mean, they're all tracks different, and you try to put your best into it, but in the end it's all tension tracks and it's all running in the background, and it can get daunting then.
Yeah, it's like working on something where they're like, all right, we need another battle cue. All right, we need another battle cue. Like, how many more battle cues can I do with,
how many battle cues can you write? Exactly.
Yeah.
But so then for the most part, when I happen to come across that threshold that you get bored or lazy with things, I try to either just take the dog for a walk and just do something completely different, or just switch projects and just work on something else.
Yeah.
So usually this frees up enough creativity to go. But to be honest, when I start a cue, I try to finish it. I hate nothing more than needing to go back to a cue that I've been working on the next day. So usually I try to have that cue done and go on the next day with something else.
Yeah.
So recently I had to open some projects from like 2015, which I needed to, because over time you change the path of sample libraries and whatever, and you spend like half an hour tweaking to actually open up the project and that it works. So it's really something that I don't like, opening old cues.
Or just seeing the old way that you go about
or
things.
the old way that you did it. Actually, you want to tweak things that you did differently.
You're like, why did I put that compressor before
exactly,
that EQ?
You just learn more over time, and actually, when I open an old cue, I wanted to fix these things with what I know now.
Yeah.
So better let it be.
Yeah, that's how it was for me when I first started, and then I would, I don't use as many plugins now. I try to keep it as as simple as like maybe like an EQ, compressor, maybe a little bit of like saturation or something. But before, I would go back to these old tracks and or sessions that I had in Logic, and I was just like, why do I have 8 plugins? Like
the 10 plugin chain.
Yeah,
it still
like,
sounds like crap.
Yeah, I have like 3 different EQs that are you could probably take all that stuff away, and it probably sounds better than when you just go on this. But I think it's sort of that journey of when you're getting into doing it, you have to sort of mess up, like you're saying, the failure thing. Like you have to kind of fail at it, so okay, that's too far. Maybe I shouldn't do 5 EQ plugins, that sort of thing.
Unless you got a really good education where you learned that stuff from point zero, you just find your way into it, and it just takes time. Like with every profession or with every hobby, with whatever you're doing, it's like the 10,000 hour rule. So you just need to spend time on it to evolve and to keep growing. And like anything else, just takes time. And but on the other hand, it's rewarding in the end when you have gone through that process. Yeah,
because at least you can, what's cool is, going back in the old sessions, it's sort of like you can almost view your progress. Like, oh, in 2015, I did this, and, and then you listen to your tracks now, and like the mixes are just, so much bigger, and, not to say louder, a lot of people, get the whole loudness wars thing, but just being able to, like, there's times where I would listen to like an old mix, and I'm just like, at the time I was like, man, this sounds awesome, it's like I can't do any better. And then I compare it to like something 2 years later, I'm just like, oh my god, it's like
There's
bigger, fuller. It's just so that's always cool, just to have that sort of going through the back catalog of the stuff.
I think this is also something to keep in mind when working on cues, to find the moment where you say this cue is done.
Yeah.
Because usually and this relates to what you say to finding old cues from 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. Back then, you had the decision made, this cue is now done to the best of my ability and my knowledge at that point in time. This may vastly differ from what I see today as a cue done or finished. You know? So, but still, I know that in 3-4 years time from now on, I will see my today's cues as mediocre or
Like, I could do better than that.
I can do better than that, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's the price of growing, you know. So,
Yeah.
and, learning. So you really need to be aware of that. You not get into endless tweaking and final master version 3.1 after initial revision, etc.
Yeah.
So you just at one point you need to say, this is done, this is the best I can do right now. Obviously in 2 years I might be able to do better, but for now this is it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think that's almost a skill you have to develop as well, like just being able to develop that awareness of when something's done.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, there are some people who they could be really good, but they have that crutch or that, you know, that thing that sort of prevents them from maybe going to the next level of just being able to acknowledge that. Or like you get people that work on a song for 2 years and it's like, oh, well, when's the album done? I'm still working on song 1. It's like, well,
that's the thing, and as you have said, this is really something that you need to develop. This is a skill set to be able to kind of self-reflect from outside. And see, is it worth putting more energy into it or just consider it done as it is now?
Yeah.
It takes time to develop this. And I know when I started out making music, how long I was tweaking at the sound of the snare or whatever to make it sound. And it's in the end, it still didn't sound the way I heard it in my head.
Yeah.
And it just develops over time and... you need to have patience. I think it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to put it. All right. Well, yeah. I want to thank you for taking the time to let me come by and hang out in your rad
Whenever
studio.
you're around, just drop by.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And, is there any other things that you're working on as of now that you'd want to talk about before we take off?
Well, actually. Right now, it's a lot of production music that I'm working on. So there are no specific film projects or game projects lined up right now. So I'm focusing on doing a little bit more library work, doing some trailer productions right now for new releases. And unfortunately, there is some more stuff, but I can't talk about right now. So
yeah, maybe we'll get to...
NDA is sitting at the end of my head, so I need to keep my mouth shut on that. There's some interesting stuff coming in the future.
Oh, yeah, it's totally understandable. But, like I said, thanks again, and really appreciate it.
You're welcome.